the vision of progress and improvements in living conditions. Science and technology has led to increasing complexity and alienation in modern life. The COVID-19 pandemic is changing everything and making the matter worse. Modern life are facing more challenge and even polarization. The question is, how can we improve human living condition in this fast-changing time? Do we need more theory, more laws, more equations, or more scientific discovery? Or should we slow down and look back at some wisdom from the past, where life is more pleasant, harmonious, where people are more in tune with nature? The goal of this forum is to start a conversation about how to apply ancient wisdom to solve current issue of modern life. In this forum, we will investigate transpersonal perspective and understand how our mind works, the evolution of consciousness, the mystery of life and death, and the law of the universe, such as the cause and effect, as well as issue about artificial intelligence. This forum is only the beginning. We hope that in the future, we'll invite more speakers to continue to discuss and investigate the application of ancient wisdom to modern life. Dr. Raymond Ye, do you want to say something more about the forum?
Okay, let me supplement just a couple of things that Professor Wu and I, when we start thinking about designing the forum. I think in addition to what Professor Wu said, I mean, if you look into the future, by 2050, the world population is expected to reach 9.8 billion people. And however, our food supplies will be under great stress than today, as demand will be 60% higher, but climate changes, urbanization, and degradation will shrink the available land, according to World Economic Forum. So, but the problem we're facing today are much, much greater than in the last hundreds of years. So, but on the other hand, from ancient times, these kind of problems also happened before. So in order to try to tackle the problem, I mean, the problem today cannot be tackled by, like Professor Wu said, a single equation and more physics, more AI, but rather we have to look inside as well and to think about looking at the problem holistically and to take responsibility individually as well. So, and that's why, the motivation to go back to the ancient wisdom, but it's not limited to Buddhism only, all right? Other religions and traditional cultures are also on the list for us to look into how the wisdom of the past can be utilized to tackle the tough problem of today. So that's all I want to add, but I want to emphasize that if the participant can help to solicit other kind of ancient wisdoms for problem solving of today's problem, please let us know, because that helps us to continue the forum in a dialogue fashion. All right, I pass back to Professor Wu.
I would like to introduce the first speaker today, Dharma Master Heng Sure. Dharma Master Heng Sure is the chairman of the board of the Dharma Realm Buddhism Association, as well as the director of Berkeley Buddhist Monastery. As a young monk, he and Dharma Master Heng Sure began an 800-mile pilgrimage from Los Angeles to the city of 10,000 Buddha in Northern California, doing a full prostrations every 3 steps to seek world peace. It took more than 2 years to complete this historical pilgrimage. He is currently based in Gold Coast, Dharma Realm in Australia. I would like to introduce Dharma Master Heng Sure.
Namo Fundamental Teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Fundamental Teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Fundamental Teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha. Thank you very much, Professor Wu and Professor Ye, for the kind introduction. And I have to say that tonight I'm delighted to be able to use my best language, English, talking about my favorite topic, which is how the Dharma works to help people in the world, with my favorite audience, which is all of you who have come to listen to me share some ideas tonight. So welcome, and I also want to express my appreciation to all the many hands who have to contribute, who have to link together in order to make this lecture possible. The translators, the tech folks, and all of you who I hope bring an open mind, a fresh perspective, and curiosity, and a heart of caring, a wish to make the world a better place. So let's jump right in. It is the case that Buddhist practice has always influenced whatever new culture it has met. And each of those cultures, starting with India, moving through East Asia, Southeast Asia, and then north to Tibet and Nepal, and then jumping the ocean, coming to the west, each one of those cultures was in turn influenced. The Dharma was influenced by each and every culture that it met. So we had this mutual influence happening. I would like to propose looking ahead and thinking about solutions. That's what our forum is about. And there's some tremendous topics coming up, I will say. That if we look ahead and think, how does Buddhism provide a solution to issues that arise? I'm going to propose 4 areas that maybe 100 years from now, if we look back, we will say this is where Buddhism influenced the contemporary world the most. What would they be? One is the egalitarian, democratic nature of the Dharma. That's number 1. Number 2 is Buddhism's psychological orientation. Number 3 is the Dharma's science-friendly attitude and its vision of technology. And then number 4 is how our Mahayana tradition out of China reanimates our vision of and our participation in the biosphere. That is to say, the world around us. All right? Does that work? So egalitarian, psychology, science-friendly, and reanimation of the world. All right? I wonder if, let's see, Professor Wu, could you unpin? Are you pinned there? I'm trying to get myself in view here. There we go. All right. Okay, there we go. Lovely. Maybe you could spotlight my square here. Okay, let's move on. So, what about Buddhism's egalitarian nature? What does that mean? Why is this going to be an important aspect looking back 100 years at Buddhism today? And also, I think I also want to point out that young people and old people with young minds will appreciate this aspect of the Dharma. What is it? The idea that the Buddha described all sentient beings in the 10 Dharma realms as possessing the Buddha nature equally, which is to say all beings have access to the methods that the Buddha himself practiced. That is egalitarian. When facing the Buddha, you'll notice that the monks and the nuns stand beside, not above, the laity. We all face the Buddha equally, and more interestingly, where we meet the Buddha is in the mind. There is no high or low in access to the Dharma. Isn't that interesting? What determines your success in practicing the Dharma is your own personal vigor in addressing the practices, your sincerity, not your gender, not your class, not your bank account, not your connections, or your age. So for young people who are acutely aware of injustice involved in authority and power relationships, when we discover the non-hierarchical nature of the Buddha's community, it is refreshing and it is empowering. So the role of the monastic clergy, the monks and the nuns, or those who come before you into the community, appeals to the egalitarian nature of modern individuals. The monastic sangha, monks and nuns, and lay people who take the precepts hold more training rules and devote themselves more fully to the practices. So for this reason, they walk in front of the line when the 4 assemblies proceed around the Buddha hall. The Buddha instructed that his teachings be kept in the vernacular. What did the Buddha say? He said, don't write them down. Don't write down the Dharma. Why? Because as soon as you write it down, it becomes the possession of those people who can read. So who can read? Well, if you have an agrarian population where everybody's on the land trying to bring food out of the earth, who has time to learn to read? Just that privileged minority. The Buddha understood that, and he said, no, just pass it in the oral tradition. My mouth to your ears, and your mouth to as many ears as can hear you. So the purpose of the Dharma, said the Buddha, is to end suffering. It should be clear. It should be available to all people, literate and illiterate alike. Furthermore, in terms of egalitarian access to the Dharma, in his lifetime, the woman's sangha was established. His own foster mother became the first ordained nun, Mahaprajapati. She established the Bhikshuni Sangha. In the Mahayana tradition, women have been ordaining and taking vows for 2,500 years. I remember, this sounds like a joke. It's one of those jokes about, there was a rabbi and a priest and a monk not walking into a bar. They were meeting in the park. This actually happened. This is a true story. There was a rabbi. There was a Lutheran minister. And there was a Buddhist monk meeting in the park at an interfaith gathering. And the topic was access to the priesthood. And so the rabbi was very proud. He said, I want you all to know that we, in the 20th century, have been ordaining women into the rabbinate for another couple hundred years. So we have women rabbis now. He was very proud of that. And so excellent. And the Lutheran said, oh, yes. In our synod, we divided, there are certain parts of Lutheranism that doesn't agree, but our synod have been ordaining women into the priesthood for several decades now. We have very strong female representation. And they both turned to me and they said, what about you Buddhists? I said, well, we have had Buddhist nuns for 2,500 years. And they both went, yes, that's very good, very laudable. So So yeah, we don't have to bow our heads at all in terms of egalitarian approach to the Dharma. For 2,500 years since the Buddha's lifetime, there has been access to the fruits of the path for all genders, right? The Buddha opened up the Indian caste system to welcome all sincere practitioners, a radical gesture that turned the standard social observances on their head. Likewise, he opened up the Dharma for half the human population at a time in a culture where women were little more than property. Their primary value was reproducing male children. So the Buddha said liberation is possible for not only all humans, but for all beings in realms of reincarnation, including gods, ghosts, asuras, animals, hell beings, how much the more humans of all descriptions. So for young people who this access to the path of liberation appeals to youth who learned in their studies of theistic religions about polytheistic Greeks and Hindus and monotheistic Abrahamic faiths. They learned that God is the highest and that humans never have a chance to replace that all-powerful creator. That would be blasphemy in a theistic system. By contrast, Buddhism promises that all living beings have the Buddha nature and all can become Buddhas. So now let's take that perspective, that wide open democratic access to the Dharma and to principle, and apply it to the environment. We see that Buddhism is ecologically sound for this simple reason. It offers a what's called non-anthropogenic perspective. That is to say, humans are not in the middle. Instead, the mind is in the middle. Humans are not the center of the Buddhist cosmos. Buddhism is mind-centric, living beings-centric, wisdom-centric. That perspective is much more sustainable in that the Buddhist view takes into account the interests of species other than human, many of whom are voiceless. They can't speak on their own behalf. So when you have 大慈悲, 同体大悲, same body, great compassion as your worldview, then the voiceless have a representation. All right, that's the first one. Now, what do you think? When we look back after 100 years, is that equality of access to the path and its fruits going to be an appealing, attractive aspect of the Dharma once it's understood? I think so. Buddhism has a very strong psychological orientation. One of the major avenues for its acceptance into Western culture, into modern culture, will be its psychological orientation. The dialogue between psychology and the Buddha Dharma will have a major role in shaping Buddhism in the 21st century. I was first interested in college. I wanted to study psychology. I remember being a freshman and taking a course in psychology, and then I discovered later, the deeper I got into it, that psychology was, if it was Freudian or Jungian, it resulted in the talking cure, where you used language to unpack neuroses, psychoses, paranoias, schizophrenia. It was pathology-centered, it was disease-centered, and further, most of the research in the higher, if you were a graduate student in psychology, you had to learn about rats, white rats, and demographics. You had to know statistics. I was interested in the human experience, when it goes wrong and when it goes right. And yet that was not the approach. You were dealing with lab animals, doing experiments. And when the training focused on human experience, too often it was pathology or chemical therapy. Take a pill to reduce your anxiety. Buddhist meditation, on the other hand, allows the patient and the doctor to experience live, in vivo, while it's happening, the human mind with its potential for awakening and its ability to go wrong, to tie itself into affliction, into 烦恼. So the Buddha's theoretical model was available through the texts, and it said, here is a healthy, well-developed human mind, and it's available to you if you apply yourself. Suddenly, the goal of psychology, as I understood it, was now accessible to anyone who followed the Buddha to meditate. So two levels of inquiry are now emerging from the dialogue between psychology and Buddhism. One is using the Buddha's description of the mind in the sutras as a pathway for self-understanding, self-transcendence, a meditative therapeutic model. The other path that is opening up from this dialogue is investigating the interaction between Buddhist theories of mind and neuroscience. The Mind and Life Institute is functioning. There are formal studies ongoing at University of Wisconsin, Madison, UCLA, Stanford, other research institutions. So this is a very fruitful path for investigation. The Buddhist sutras you could call blueprints of awakened consciousness. His teachings to the monks and nuns and the devas and the bodhisattvas could be called in-depth descriptions of the workings of the mind for the benefit of those who need this information, because your meditation carries you through the same territory and along the same paths that the Buddha walked, and he walked them all the way to their end. So that's, I think, the second place where the Dharma is going to make a major contribution here in the West. Another one is Buddhism is science-friendly. This is the third story. This is the third place. We know that Christianity, at the Renaissance in Western Europe, had to diverge. That when the findings of science, for example, that in fact the Earth rotated around the sun, not the sun rotating around the Earth, these teachings were antithetical to the teachings of the Church, and science had to struggle with the received dogma for acceptance. And we know science won. So that split has never been healed between the discoveries of humanity in the Renaissance, using our apparatus, our telescopes, and our microscopes. That break from the theology of the Bible has never healed. To this day, we have creationism and evolution. So theories at war. Now, the Buddha Dharma never had that struggle. Buddhism is one of the least antagonistic religions towards the scientific spirit of inquiry. The Buddha's formative years of practice in the forest, in Australia we say in the bush. The Buddha went to the bush for 6 years. The Buddha's formative years of practice fits the paradigm of proper scientific investigation. He worked from a theoretical hypothesis. He wanted to know if mortality, if birth and death could end. And he employed a variety of methodologies in his research, all the different yogas being practiced in the woods, in the mountains. He mastered them all and discarded those that he called non-beneficial asceticism, for example, trying to starve himself to the end of desire. He discarded that. And he said, no, that's a failed methodology. I'm going to try something else. He left a paper trail in his sutras of his experiments in meditation, and then he handed down the results of his research so that later investigators, later scientists, who might seek the answers on our own. That's us, following the Buddhist methods. So this model that the Buddha left behind, very scientific in nature, has been tested by subjects East and West for 2.5 millennia, and we're receiving the same results that the Buddha received. Now, what about technology? One of our major issues these days is how do we relate to these devices, to our cell phones, right? What's our relationship with our phones every day and social media, etc.? There's a crisis right now of addiction to cell phones and social media. Buddha Dharma offers a potential ethics-based solution to a current crisis created by advances in technology. Buddhism suggests that humans have a duty as stewards for the planet to think on behalf of all beings who share our natural environment, as well as the unborn of generations to come. In a world where the average child spends 5 times more accumulated time daily with cell phones, computers, TVs, game consoles, than interacting with human relationships, get that? The average child spends 5 times more time daily with devices than he does with humans, or she does with humans. Buddhism's emphasis on virtue and compassion, on giving and ethical integrity can help reshape our priorities as a society. In the Avatamsaka Sutra, there's a description of Indra's net. I think people know about that concept, that there's one of the devas in the heavens, his name is Shakra Devanam Indra, has a net which adorns his palace. And every time the net makes a knot, anytime there's 2 strands, there's a perfect pearl that reflects and is held in the net. Each pearl reflects the totality, and looking through the pearl, it gathers back all. So one reflects all, and all are returned to the one, kind of like breathing in that vision. So the vision of Indra's net from the Avatamsaka Sutra, from this contemplation of the Dharma realm, gives us an alternate view of interdependence that models a world set back on its foundation of pre-modern humanistic values. At the same time, this vision of universal connection requires us to reach for a global ethic, to step up to the responsibility pointed out by our vision of connectivity. It's a pre-modern vision of the universe, but a modern and contemporary ethical commitment to serve that vision of connectedness. So at the Graduate Theological Union in Berkeley, we dedicated a new technology center at the library, and it was quite poetic, because here is a library dedicated to the research of ancient theologies, adapting a technology center, so using modern tools to investigate ancient wisdom. And I wrote a prayer. I was invited to speak at the dedication, and I wrote a prayer for Buddhist-inspired technology blessing. And I'd like to share it with everybody and see what you think, whether this gives us a road ahead into our solving one of our problems that we have created with our convenience and speed of Moore's law of our new technology. Here's how the blessing goes. I said, "Let us first invoke Indra's net, the interlacing net of pearls, which in the Buddhist pantheon is said to adorn the heavenly palace of Shakra Devanam Indra, Lord of the heaven of the 33 gods. The net contains an infinite number of perfect transparent pearls, each one of which perfectly reflects the totality of pearls. In each pearl, one can see all the pearls, and the totality of pearls is gathered back by a single perfect pearl. May the electronic tools that we use in this library reflect the totality of the Spirit in the same way. May every microcircuit that sustains our cyber reality mirror the interdependence of the internet. May each node, each module, each chip carry us faithfully into contact with the totality of the entire net. May each monitor and tube reflect accurately, reliably, without bias, the data that can become information, the information that can become knowledge, and the knowledge that with grace and compassion can become wisdom. May we never forget, as we use our electronic shovels and digital chisels, that the tools are simply means to an end, that wisdom and compassion are the ends to those means. May we use our electronic servants to clarify our human values and enhance our basic human kindness, instead of leading us to serve the hardware and software tools that too often are designed to serve marketing that is in turn the servant of greed. In this way, may we make each keystroke a blessing, each printout a prayer, each slideshow a sacrament for the earth and the sky." So may we offer this as a perspective on using the Buddha's wisdom to solve problems that face us right this minute. The Mahayana Buddha Dharma that came from Asia is full of dragons, full of ghosts, full of gods, full of tree spirits, and wheel-turning sage kings. This is my fourth suggestion of how the Buddha Dharma can really influence modern minds and lead us towards a renaissance of humanity on the planet. It's the idea that Buddha Dharma can reanimate a nature that has often gone silent and sterile. Worlds exist within worlds in the Buddha Dharma. Every bit of space, every inch of space is full of spiritual presence. The teachings of the Dharma put humanity in a relationship with hell beings, ghosts, animals, titans, gods, and enlightened sages. And the mind rests in the middle. We call it the mind ground, like a garden that can grow all things impartially. Humanity has a place in the larger network. It doesn't exploit. It doesn't dominate. The Dharma gives us infinite reciprocity, interdependence. Master Hua's teachings encourage us to develop our humanity, to become wise humans, awakened human beings who have a commitment to our larger family of all living beings. Once we cultivate this awakened humanity, we move closer to the land, the air, the water, and the biosphere that we usually only exploit. Our sense of wonder, often pummeled into insensitivity by fear of a punishing God or authority, that pushes us into abandoning the ultimately alive world of the original inhabitants of this continent, can find safety and vision and connection in this view. The First Nations, the indigenous peoples, the world around, find our planet a miraculous place of wonder and terror mixed. In this view, humanity is part of a larger web. We are knit into and inexplicably related to all other species. We do not dominate. Humans do not own other species. Buddhism's reanimation of nature merges with the awakened Buddha nature and reflects this view. The earth is a community to be related to, not a commodity to be consumed. Thoughts of greed of the human mind is the factor most responsible for the rape of the earth and humanity's growth into what it is now, the dominant threat to the continued existence of life on earth. The Buddha labeled greed as a poison and preached simplicity, gratitude, and humility as humanity's rightful stance. So that's the four places where I feel that Buddhism is going to make a major contribution. And each one of these views, the idea of egalitarian access to wisdom and to compassion, the idea of psychological orientation, the mind leading us, the awakened mind leading us, and the polluted, afflicted mind as the thing that holds us back. The idea of Buddhism being science-friendly and approaching a step-by-step empirical, methodological process for refining our humanity into wisdom. And then finally, this idea that humans can be stewards. We can serve all awakened nature, all 10 Dharma realms and the planet itself, if we can let go of this humans only and male humans foremost. Just let that go. That's a view that no longer serves the planet. In fact, may destroy it. If instead we say we are interdependent, interconnected, and we have a responsibility to all beings to be the best people we can become. So that's what I think I would like to pause here and see if there are any questions. And once again, express my appreciation to Professor Raymond Ye and Professor John Vu for setting up this forum, and also Dharma Master Jin Yong for organizing the Sunday evening program at the at City of 10,000 Buddhas for this forum. OK， 报告完毕了。
Does anybody have questions for Dharma Master Sure? Either you can ask or you can type it in the chat room. Then I can read it for Dharma Master Sure.
So this program is organized as a forum, and the forum means you have a job to listen, but you also have a job to talk. So please share your insights into have you all seen the poster? We have a beautiful poster in Chinese and in English outlining the goals of this forum. So we hope your questions will address the forum.
We have the first questions. What does it mean to be the best human being that we could be?
Be a Buddha. And before you get to be a Buddha, or even after you get to be a Buddha, be a Bodhisattva. Now, how do you do it? Number one, instead of fighting and contending and struggling, you yield. Let the others be number one. Second, instead of being greedy, we practice generosity. We say, I have enough. I am grateful for what I have. I want to share the blessings. Bodhisvaha. Number three, instead of constantly itching for more and more and more, no matter how much I have, I'm not satisfied, we say, you know, I'm content. I really believe that Buddhist saying, 知足常乐,能忍自安. When you can be content, you're always happy. When you can be patient, you'll always be at peace. That's wisdom. That's what a good person does. Number four, instead of being selfish, what do? We be selfless. And of course, that's hard to do because ever since Mother patted us on her stomach before we were born, we knew that we were separate, and my skin divides me from all of you, and you're all outside, and I'm here inside, kind of lost and wondering what I'm supposed to do and how I'm supposed to figure it out, right? That leads to a sense of alienation and selfishness. But my question was, what does a kind person do? What's the best way to be the best human being? Be selfless. And instead of wanting all the good stuff for yourself, we share. Learn to share, right? It does make us happy. 助人是快乐之本. Helping others is the path to happiness. And then to really be the best possible person is to tell the truth. Cherish integrity. So instead of fighting, yielding. Instead of greed, generosity. Instead of seeking, contentment. Instead of selfishness, selflessness as best we can. It's hard, but you got to do it over and over every day. Instead of wanting all the benefit for me, I share the blessings. I share with others. And instead of dishonesty, practice integrity. That's what it means to be the best possible human being. That's the path to Buddhahood. Next.
The second questions, how do we control our mind so that we do not compare with others who have more wealth?
So the question, I will restate the question, which is, how do we avoid jealousy? There's another word that is equally powerful, which is envy. How do we avoid envy? How do we avoid jealousy? So we turn for that answer to Samantabhadra, Bodhisattva, Pushempusa. And Samantabhadra said, 随喜功德. He said, joyfully support others. So if the question was specific about money, so, okay, well, it's not only money that determines how someone else has, gotten ahead in the world. How do we avoid feeling jealousy and competitive when we see somebody who's got more toys than we have, drives a better car than we do, has a prettier spouse than mine, or a happier marriage than mine, it goes right down to kids. The older kid gets the better toy, the younger brother destroys it. How do we avoid that? Well, Samantabhadra Bodhisattva says, Sui Shi Gongda. He said, joyfully support others' happiness. And you have to actually do it. This is a Heng Man, this is a Fa Man. It's a practice. You actually have to practice it, which is what? When you see somebody who has something better than you do, whatever it might be, a relationship, material, money, success, whatever it is, they get the fellowship, but you miss the fellowship, right? You practice by saying, their success does not diminish me. Blessings in the world are not zero sum. There's only that many, and if they get any, I have less. That's a wrong view. It's not the case. In fact, when anyone has success, my joyful support, Sui Shi, increases the happiness, increases the goodness. And you know what else it does? It prevents affliction in my heart. Jealousy, envy, looking out at others is a lot of work. You have to go look at them. What do they have? What do I have? They have more? I'm unhappy now. You go out, back, compare. That's exhausting, right? Instead, you say, this person has something wonderful. That's great. I'm so glad. People, we're not an infinite species, right? There's only that many humans on the planet. And for others to succeed, all of humanity succeeds. When we see it that way, it's just a view, but it's a strong view. The alternative is jealousy and envy. If you get something good, I'm your enemy. I want, what an awful road to affliction. It turns my heart dark. It gives that feeling in my throat of copper, bitter. Jealousy is green, right? It's a green energy. It's a coppery flavor in your throat. Really poison, very poisonous. And so the other people who could be your friend and who you can support, they resent your jealousy. And what do you have? Disaster. So instead, Sui Shi Gongda, joyfully support others' merit and virtue. It really, really works.
There's a question in Chinese.
Okay.
法师，世界会坏掉不是自然的规律吗？为什么要改变？ In English, it says the world will decay is natural. Why we want to change it?
Okay. So, would you be happy living in Fort Myers, Florida 2 days ago? Have you seen the photos from Hurricane Ian? Hurricane Ian hit a place on the west coast of Florida, the Gulf of Mexico side of Florida, that they said had a 0% chance of being hit by a hurricane. Historically, hurricanes didn't go there. So a lot of people lived there with their fancy boats, their nice houses. And after Hurricane Ian came by, a Category 4 hurricane that just took these huge $1 million boats and threw them up on their houses, the roofs of the houses, right? And earlier than this, it went through Puerto Rico and destroyed Puerto Rico. Now, if you say it's natural that the world is going to go bad, no difference, right? Living in Fort Myers, Florida, having your house crushed and blown away and flooded out, 一样了，没有关系了. It's the same as natural. Why change? So I'm exaggerating to say, because why? Because people can suffer. And that's one reason why we don't eat animals, is because they suffer just like we do. So that's why. And bodhisattvas don't quit when times get hard. I'm not a bodhisattva, but I can appreciate bodhisattvas. I read in the sutras. Look at Earthstore Bodhisattva. The hells right this minute, we don't have to wait till the world goes bad. The hells are bad right now. That's where a 10th stage bodhisattva goes to help, because his heart is that big. So when the world goes bad, why do we want to change? Because my heart breaks every time I see hurricanes destroying people, pandemics destroying people, warfare destroying people, poverty. Poverty destroys families, destroys kind-hearted people who just can't get a break. So yeah, if you really understand the Putishin, the Bodhi resolve motivates you to get out and make life livable for all living beings.
Here's another Chinese question, question in Chinese. 顶礼师法师，阿弥陀佛。刚才您说通过打印机展现慈悲，我们公司就是生产打印机的公司，想具体问一下如何通过这份工作修行感恩。Question in English is that when you say through the printing machine we can express compassion. Well, our company produces printing machine, so we want to find out in concrete how do we cultivate through our work.
I'm trying to recall where I said that printing machines can help us increase compassion. Did I say that? It doesn't ring a bell. The listener heard what they heard. This is okay. So if the question is, let's see here. Let's see. 如何通过这份工作修行? So I don't really understand the question about printers. Let's see. Printers are called 打印机. Okay. How can we, in the workplace, increase compassion? That's, you're asking a monk. And I have not worked for a salary more than a few times in my life, because I've been a monk for now close to 47 years. And so my answer might not be useful for someone who is working in the corporate world, but I heard some wisdom from an African-American friend of mine who is a mayor of a small town in the South. And his solution, he said, my citizens, he says, citizens of my town, he says, I want you to be responsible for a circle 3 feet around your body. What you say, he says, this is my idea of how to be a good citizen. And so this is a small town in Georgia, but I would include it to be your workplace where you're making printers, is take 3 feet around you and make that space a place of kindness. No matter what it is, whether it's a person, your coworker, your family member, most important, your friends, your enemies, people you don't get along with, strangers, animals, food that comes on your table at lunch, no matter what comes into that 3-foot space, respond with kindness. And my friend the mayor went on to say, anything that any words that come through the air to your ear inside that space, listen to them. And listen to whether those words are full of pain, or whether those words are full of confusion or dishonesty. He says, and then respond with kindness to those words. People mostly are suffering. We all have our afflictions. And that's true in the workplace. That's true in the home. That's true in the marketplace. That's true in the world outside. It's certainly true in the world of animals and birds and reptiles and fish, where mostly they're raised to be slaughtered by humans for food, right? Anything that comes into my 3-foot circle around me, if I can pay attention to it and treat it with kindness and listen to its sound, he said, it's a better world. You're a better citizen. You're a better employee. It's a better world.
Great. I'd like to have a comment, Dhamma, that
right.
when you mention the concept of global ethics and interest net, I think that is where top problem, when solving top problem, we have to keep those in mind. All right, because it comes to, for example, if I am an architect,
right?
I designed a house, so it's done. After I design a house, it's done. My responsibility is only at this time to this specific task. However, with the world goes by very fast, things change very. I'll give you an example. A responsible architect. An example is the architect who designed the Cambridge University student chapel.
Okay.
And in that chapel, there are two big beams. All right. So 70 or 80 years later, they hired a new architect to sort of remodel the chapel. Of course, those two beams need to be replaced. Guess what? The previous architect already planted 2 trees 100 years ago. That's the responsibility I'm talking about. And you talk about global ethics. That's part of that. But much more important is into this fast moving world. When we are trying to solve a problem today, like global climate change, we cannot just say, okay, here it is, here's the solution.
Right.
There's no such thing. We have to design a solution space that can fit the time and space changes as well. So how do we explain that in terms of Buddhism?
Okay, so a friend of mine, a man named Tom Mahan, an author and a publicist for Silicon Valley back in the earliest days, he wrote a book called Charged Bodies, The History of Silicon Valley. And he wrote about such things as how the beginning of technology in Silicon Valley in the San Jose area was the Norden bomb site. It began with a weapon. Company that built the bomb site that was much more accurate, and that company developed and became what was it? Anyway, the start of Silicon Valley was after post-war, when that company decided to move on to other kinds of technology. Tom Mahan wrote this history. Anyway, so the story goes like this. Tom created a forum like ours, like this very forum that we're working on, called Human Values in the High-Tech World. And he recruited me to be the monk on staff. And we participated in high-tech conferences, trade shows, like at Moscone Center in San Francisco, and the International Solid State Circuits Conference. And for 4 or 5 years, Tom and I would go into these conferences where the topic was what? The topic was always, what's the new paradigm for chips? Is it going to be silicon, or could it be molybdenum chloride? And there would be, in this 3-day conference over the weekend, there would be 100 panels. And if your new paradigm was accepted, you could be an instant millionaire, billionaire, So these are high stakes. And down in the bottom of the program was our panel, which was Human Values in the High-Tech World. 高科技世界里边的人生观. And what we did, we tried it, we had a pilot program, and the first time we planned it, we thought, they stuck our program on at the end, when everybody is jumping back onto the airplanes and flying back to Dallas and flying back to Denver and, Chicago. And we thought we might be alone in the room. And we described our program, and, that we would have a chance to talk about some of the technology that we're making. And when our program came, it was the last program, the last slot of the entire event. And there was a line outside the door. We had standing room only. We had chairs for 30. There were 100 people in the room. And these voices spoke up and said, He said, we passed the microphone around. We had a line of people wanting to speak. And this one coder said, he said, it's a broken system. He said, I got the world's best education. I graduated in computer science at UC Berkeley. Evans Hall was where I graduated. He says, I'm at the top of my career. I'm at the top of my industry. And you know what? He says, everything that I make is either trivial or deadly. It's either computer games or weapons systems. He said, that's not what I got educated for, to make things that we play with or things that destroy life. He says, and then the guy behind him takes the microphone. He says, yeah. He says, I use all my knowledge. He says, and marketing takes over and says, it's time to market. We have to ship the project. We have the product. Every 18 months, we got to ship it again. He says, I know there are bugs in it. I know it's not complete. It's faulty software, but we shrink wrap it, put it out the door and sell it. He says, you know what? Then I have to buy it and use it, and it bombs on me, and I throw it in my closet, and I'm so angry that marketing greed determines what we sell. He says, I have a closet full of software that I have made that I know is defective. He says, I can't stand it. And then a third person grabs the microphone, and he says, this is a Canadian. He says, yeah. He says, I'm an engineer. He says, I graduated in engineering from Waterloo University up in Canada. And he says, every time one of our engineering graduates gets his diploma, along with the diploma, when they graduate, they get one of these green iron rings. And so he says, you know what it is? And he pulled it out of his pocket. This is an engineer standing on the floor in our seminar in Moscone Center. He says, look at this. He says, we give one of these. He says, I'm now a faculty member. We give one of these to all our graduating engineers. What is it? He said, this is a link from a chain that supported the Waterloo Bridge, which because of engineering failure collapsed, and 10 people died in their cars on that bridge. He said, we give one of these to every engineer that graduates to remind him or her that people's lives depend upon your choices. He said, so he said, human values in the high-tech world. So I would say, to answer your question, Ray, come back to the mind. The virtues of humanity haven't changed. From the Buddha's time to now, we all, by and large, want the same things out of our lives and extended to others' lives. But in search of marketplace values, fighting, greed, seeking selfishness, self-benefit, dishonesty, we forget those values. So if we can keep those values alive, which Buddha Dharma does, then we can create products that we are proud of that actually enhance our lives and don't destroy us.
There's another question.
Okay.
If I find a dead fish, which I did not kill, can I eat the flesh of the dead fish? What karma does it cause? Do I get any effect from eating the meat that I did not kill?
No. Okay. When it comes to karma, it's not so helpful to be a lawyer. Negotiating degrees of bad seems like an excuse. So I would suggest, if you like to eat fish, go eat fish. But understand that no matter what we eat, whether it was killed, we saw it killed, whether we heard it killed, whether we think it was killed for us, no matter what, every mouthful we eat influences our bodies and our minds. So my take, I mean, let's never mind dead fish. You're eating dead fish. Anybody who eats fish is eating dead fish, you understand? So what about you don't eat fish, but you eat 素鱼, right? You're eating vegetarian fish-flavored meat products, right? It's meant to taste. Well, I have a great story. Okay, so I'll conclude. My principle here is when I choose food for my diet, and I eat what people give me. I'm a mendicant. I'm a monastic. I eat what is offered. But I choose among the things offered to me to eat food that doesn't cause harm. If I know that, and you say, oh, well, it wasn't killed for you, so I don't even want the suggestion in my mind that I would rather it be fish than mockfish, 素鱼, right? I don't want mockfish either. I don't want to eat fish. Fish are alive. Fish have consciousness. So, great story. We traveled, monks from DRBA traveled down south to a big Buddhist monastery in Los Angeles. I won't mention the name of it. And this monastery was really proud of its mock meat. And so there we were, and my first experience down in this monastery. And the host was a layman, and here were monastics around the table, and the layman was serving up food prepared by the kitchen in this monastery. And the monastery was famous for gourmet eating, right? They really 美食家. And so out came a platter of food, and he put it on the table, and it was a soybean fish, 红烧鱼, but it was made of soybeans, but it looked exactly like a fish with the eyes, with the fins. And the layman was so proud of it. And he said, look at this. He said, it smells like a fish. It looks like a fish. It tastes like a fish. And it's a vegetarian fish. And with us, we had a layman who was very naughty and had a very sharp mind and a very sharp tongue. And he looked at the fish and he looked at the layman. He says, yeah. He says, it really does look just like a fish. He said, hey, I got an idea. Let's wash it off and let's go liberate life. 他说，哎，真的像一条鱼，嘿，我们赶快把它洗一洗去放生吧。So, yeah, yeah, what's the karma of a dead fish that wasn't killed? Up to you. You're free to eat anything you want, but everything you eat, you incorporate with. Why incorporate with thoughts of it being a free fish? No karma, right? Karmic lawyers, bad end. Okay.
There's another question in Chinese.
How much time do we have? I'd like to offer a song at some point.
Okay, here one more question only.
Okay, good. Let's go.
法师，我知道有些执着要放下，可是很难放下，不知道要该怎么做。有的时候越想放下，越会想起，更放不下。
English.
Translate.
English.
Oh,
English.
English is that I know that there are many attachments. I would like to put it down. However, it's difficult to do. So I don't know what should I do. In fact, sometimes the more I want to let go, the more I could not let go.
Mm-hmm. So if putting it down was easy, there would be more Buddhas. Putting things down that we love is the whole game. It's hard. Of course it's hard. So the Buddha, understanding that, spoke 84,000 methods, all of which are designed, as they say in Chinese, 看破放下. So the first part is seeing through it. It's not so much that we can't let it go, it's that we still want it. We haven't seen through it. Now, if you want to look at it from a an analytical point of view, and there are some people that call Buddhism the religion of analysis, which I think is really appropriate. What's involved in kanpo, in seeing through it, is to understand when you get something that you think you want, 又怎么样? What then? There's a subject, that's you. There's an object, that thing. Then there's something in between, desire. And so the Buddha gave us what he called guanxiangfa, contemplations, which is what? Using the mind skillfully to work on that thing in between, the desire. If the desire is gone, then the thing that you're looking at that used to be so beautiful and attractive and wonderful and unputdownable, and you, the person who's watching, there's no relationship. But as long as that desire is still there. So what do we do in order to lessen desire? Well, the answer would be see it clearly. The Buddha gave us contemplations, methods for looking, right? For example, he gave us the contemplation of impurity. If that thing that you can't put down is the body of another human, be it your spouse, be it whatever gender appeals to you, whatever that, if it's embodied in another person, you just have to look with the eyes of a doctor at that body. Now, I'm not going to go through it because that's not fair at the moment, but the Buddha said, use what's called 不净观, the contemplation of impurity, and see the human body as it really is. Go 3 days without a shower, and how do you smell, right? Just don't wash your socks for a week, and how do they smell? Where'd that smell come? Your body, right? The body is not pure. And so when you see it that way, suddenly this view of this analysis, seeing the body the way it really, really is, the way my body really, really is, suddenly that's at war with the desire. It's not as desirable. And so the Buddha said, okay, contemplate this way. And he said, if we have a lot of anger, if we just blow off all the time, we can't, what are we attached to? Reputation, fame, being liked, right? If we say, oh, I just want you to praise me, and instead somebody goes, you're nothing, loser. America has an ex-president who can't hear that word. He will not admit that he could ever be a loser, turning the country upside down because of that one attachment that he can't let go of. So the Buddha said, he said, instead of getting angry, practice patience and kindness, 慈悲观. Really look at the result of your anger when you get really angry at someone, right? What's it like? How you destroy that relationship until they forgive you again. And contemplate kindness and patience, and the anger dissipates. And he says, if you're really confused about things, if what you're lust after is a BMW, or a Mercedes-Benz, or a fancy new iPhone 14 Max Pro Plus, whatever it is, whatever you're, lusting after. He says, look at yin yuan guan. He says, look at how everything comes together by conditions, by relationships, and it falls apart the same way. How many old cell phones do you have in your drawer? I have Palm Pilots in my drawer that when they were hot, that was the thing, the first PDA, personal digital assistant. Anybody else got Palm Pilots in your drawer? Maybe you're not old enough. Anybody else got a BlackBerry in your drawer? How many Blackberries in your drawer? I have 3 generations of Blackberries in my drawer. How many old iPhones do you have? Flip phones, right? How come they're not what they once were? Yeah, yin yuan guan. You say, causes and conditions come together. So we can use the impurity contemplation for desire, for greed. We can use the patience and compassion contemplation for anger. We can use the conditions and relationship, 因缘, the causes and conditions contemplation for stupidity, for delusion, for thinking that this is the last phone I'll ever buy. Oh yeah? So that's the medicine the Buddha gave us for when we 放不下, 看不破, can't put it down, can't see through it.
I'm sure there are a couple more questions. Do you want to offer your song first?
We can. How much time do we have, Ray?
We have we have 20 minutes.
Oh, really? Oh, I thought we were short of time. Yeah, let's do a song. You've heard me talk long enough. Okay, here's one of my favorite songs for understanding the bigger connection, and it's called Family Tree. And here are the lyrics. Can you all see your screens? I'm sharing it here on the screen, and it's water and earth, wind and fire, roots digging deeper, branches reaching higher, north and south and east and west, all beings are kin to me. We're all sitting in the shade of the family tree, sitting in the shade of the family tree. I've got earth in my feet, I've got oceans in my knees. 7 generations live on inside of me. My roots connect the universe, all beings are family. We're all sitting in the shade of the family tree, sitting in the shade of the family tree. What we do to our planet, we do to our home. Planet Earth is our address, nobody lives alone. Everyone's a neighbor in our Earth community. We're all sitting in the shade of the family tree, sitting in the shade of the family tree. Earth is home to all of us. Share the crops, don't make a fuss. Share the food grown in the ground. There's enough to go around. We eat the burger, we feed the cat. One we savor, one we pet. Pet the burger, eat the cat. Did I not get that straight? I've got brothers wearing fur, I've got sisters wearing fins. Some with wings and some with tails, some with pasty skin. I don't eat my family, come sit here right by me. We're all sitting in the shade of the family tree, sitting in the shade of the family tree. Now, the cook, she calls it omelet, but the chicken called it egg. You may call it drumstick, but the turkey called it leg. Every mother loves her children, live and let life be. So we can, you want to sing along with it? Sit beneath the shade of the family tree. Try it. Sit beneath the shade of the family tree. Come on, sit beneath the shade of the family tree. All right. That's a song. There we go.
Thank you.
Amitofo.
Amitofo, there's a couple more questions.
Okay, let's go.
One is that 师父好，义工好，请问修行一定要每天做功课吗？我只是闻法，自己偶尔念佛或者禅坐，这样可以吗？ English translation is that cultivation, do I have to do homework every day? I only recite Buddha's name occasionally, and where is it? Sometimes that I do some meditation.
Meditation.
这样可以吗? Is that okay?
Okay. So I would say congratulations. That's really good. To be able to recite the Buddha's name is so hard. It's so hard to get to hear the Buddha's name, much less be able to recite it. To be able to meditate, that's, you really, really have fu bao, fu qi, to be able to do that. So we should not look lightly on any cultivation that we're able to do. You know, don't you, that there are Buddhist communities in the world where lay people are not allowed to cultivate. They're not encouraged. Their job is to just support the monks. Right within the body of the Dharma in the Buddhist community, there are cultures where they still take the Sangha and put them over their heads. The lay people's job is only to make blessings, to live in the world. So we, in the Mahayana, Hanchuan Fojiao, we talk about Bawan Siqian Famen, the opportunity to cultivate just like a smorgasbord, like a banquet of practices. So the questioner sometimes recites the Buddha's name, that's the Pure Land Dharma door. Sometimes meditates, that's the Chan Dharma door. The fact that you've heard about them and you try them out, that's already tremendous. Don't look lightly upon it. Now, still, I would exhort you to continue and to find practices that are portable. So cultivation is not only something that you do once you cross your legs. Cultivation is not something that you only do when you pick up your recitation beads. You know, that now I'm cultivating because I got my beads in my hand, but I'm going to, once I put them down, then I'm back into the marketplace, right? It's, that's one way to do it, but I think that's not very effective. The way Master Hua, what Shifu, what he gave us, he taught us how to meditate. He encouraged us to recite the Buddha's name and mantras and listen to sutras and to follow the Vinaya. But what Shifu, he said, the best practice that I have ever found in my 50 years of cultivation, said Shifu, are these 6 things. He said, in my mind, when a thought of fighting arises, I yield. When a thought of greed rises, I'm generous. When a thought of seeking arises, I don't let myself get afflicted with that itch. Instead, I practice contentment. When selfishness rises, he said, I cultivate selflessness. I transform that thought of selfishness, and affliction goes away. When self-benefit arises, me only, all the good stuff for me, he says, I change that thought with the thought of sharing the goodness, and the affliction goes away. When a dishonest thought rises, I catch it, I recognize it, and on the spot, he says, I sweep it away. I practice integrity. He says, just doing that is the highest cultivation. That's the path to Buddhahood. Now, that's, if we want to say, what am I teaching? It's called the Liu Da Zongzhi, the 6 guidelines. And what are they? Those 6 guidelines precede broken precepts. You understand how it works? If I follow a thought of fighting or struggle, contention, what happens? I can go out and kill. I can break that precept. If I follow, but I don't let myself get afflicted. I don't go to broken precepts. Instead, I yield. Let them be number 1. Then he said, furthermore, he says, when a thought of greed rises, he said, can you all hear that turkey trying to get in? You're hearing turkey claws on my glass door. I don't know if you can hear that, but that's what's going on. There's a turkey who has decided he belongs right beside me. As soon as I step out, I'm followed by a turkey. Be patient. I'm busy. So, this is an Australian huoji, amazing bird. So, okay, so Shifu said, if you go out and follow fighting greed, seeking selfishness, self-benefit, and dishonesty, what happens is what? Affliction. Things don't work out. Trouble. You got trouble in your mind. Disasters. You can kill, you can steal, you can lust, you can lie, you can drug yourself if you follow it. But on what's called the shindi, on the mind ground, when those thoughts rise, I go, no, I'm not going to do it. I don't want to get afflicted. I'm going to yield. I'm going to be generous. I'm going to be content. I'm going to be selfless. I'm going to benefit others, share. I'm going to be true. That's cultivation. Sure, that's as our teacher told us. That's not from me. That's from Shifu. And notice that those practices are portable. You don't need beads. You don't need a cushion. You don't need, an hour to meditate in. You can carry those with you all the time. That puts the mind ground in the center of our lives, and that's the road to wisdom and compassion. So let me recommend that we redefine cultivation for ourselves. All those practices, they're 84,000, they're wonderful, but work on the mind ground, and any practice we do will meet success.
Thank you. Here is one more question.
Okay.
In Chinese. 有的时候会有一些幻想，譬如一切情景，在那个情景里面出现的人说的话，包括我做的事，这个幻想会成真吗？我的妄想会变成现实吗？ In English, a lot of times I have a lot of dreams, and including all the condition and the situation where people show up, the way what they talk about, including what I've done. If this dream can come true?
Okay. Did he say, is it 白天做梦还是晚上做梦?
He didn't say that.
Yeah, I wasn't clear on the question, whether it's real dreams at night or whether it's daydreams or, illusory states of the mind during the day. Okay, the mind is a deep place. We bring to, okay, 白天, okay. So the states that we perceive in our mind are a result of all 5 of our skandhas. All our bodies, our feelings and emotions, our thoughts, our deeper habituated thoughts, and then our consciousness as well. And then all the seeds of the things we've done in the past are all with us right this minute, right now. All those things are there. So states during the day that we meet are a result of what we have done. So what's going on in my reality is made by me. Now, if I'm not happy with my current state of being, if I'm moody, if I'm depressed, if I'm anxious, if I'm frightened, and the world gives us a lot of things to be frightened about, right? The environment, for example. So if that's the case, in my mind is full of these states that I don't like, then you've come to the right place. Buddha Dharma is exactly where you want to be. And instead of, now many people would say, oh, I recite a mantra to fight in my mind with those states. I want to beat those states away with the Da Bei Zhou, with the Leng Yan Zhou. Fighting 争是胜福心与道相违背变生四相心由和得三昧 Fighting is an attitude of victory and defeat, win and loss. It stands in opposition to the Tao. Further, it creates the 4-mark mind. Where will samadhi come from? Right? So, if we look at the Sixth Patriarch Sutra, there was a cultivator who asked the Sixth Patriarch basically the same question that you asked me. And the Sixth Patriarch's answer was, yeah, he said, my mind often has thoughts like that. He didn't try to say, oh, this is what you need to do. So let me ask you, I'm not suggesting that you drink alcohol, but if you get drunk, suppose someone gets drunk, suppose someone uses drugs, mood-altering, mind-altering substances, that's a mental state as well. So dreams at night is a mental state. 白天做梦, daydreams is a mental state. The state when we add alcohol to our bloodstream and we're intoxicated and we have delusions, that's a mental state as well. All of this, from the point of view of cultivation, is something that if we really understand yin guo, cause and effect, we can go change. I want to invite our questioner and everybody online right this minute. I want to invite you to take charge of your reality and go out and cultivate the way. And what did Shifu say? 他说学佛做人忍道进佛道成. We learn from the Buddha, but what we're learning is how to be better people. When we can be the best possible humans, then Buddhahood accomplishes itself. So no matter what kind of state we have during the day, is it diluted, is it crystal clear, it's still not yet a Buddha. And if we don't like that state, change it. Cultivate kindness and compassion and serenity and equanimity, happiness for other living beings, practice giving, practice generosity. All of those wholesome dharmas make for a future that when we live through it, we won't be disturbed by unusual states. What is the Buddha's state? Well, number one, I don't know. I'm not a Buddha. But Shifu in the past said, what is the Buddha state? It's no state. He has transformed the ego, the composite, illusory self. And as a result, all of reality is the Buddha Dharma body. That's every state whatsoever. So if we're not there yet, then states are like the weather. Today it's sunny, tomorrow it's cloudy, the next day it rains, the next day it's sunny again. Some days you get hurricanes, right? So look long, cultivate, transfer merit. Let's all become Buddhas together. Amitofo.
I guess one last question. If we have a few more
You have
minutes.
to pay extra. No, pay extra for that one. You got to include overtime. I need overtime.
Right. 顶礼法师，请问俄乌战争也是众生的杀生共业吗？最近会有核战争危机吗？决定战争胜负的因素不是武器，不是军队，是众生的业力。教育是最好的国防，为何这个道理不能被很多人普遍接受呢？
Translate, please.
English. The recent war between Russia and Ukraine is that common karma for all beings. And will there be a nuclear war coming? What is the factor that decide the winning or losing in a war is not weapons, not army, and it's really the karma of all beings. Education is the best national defense. How come this reason cannot be accepted by many people?
I understand that question was first asked in Chinese. What if I mention Taiwan? Should I? Should I mention it? Should I not? Maybe I shouldn't. How do we prevent a war across the Taiwan Straits? How much influence do you have with the leaders? And I don't name any names, but if a war happens, it's always because someone said go. Now, my life and the life of all of Master Hua's monastic sangha, all our monks and nuns, my Tongsan Daoyo, are committed to not fighting, 不争. We have precepts against taking life, against harming. I don't like to allow fighting thoughts in my mind. So how much influence do I have on my leaders? How much influence do you have on your leaders? I hope a lot, So that's what we live for. And there were people who suggested that Master Hua actually gave up years of his life in ransom to keep the war between Taiwan and China from happening. Now, I can't prove that. I don't know, and maybe you shouldn't repeat that, but I've heard some people suggested that that was the case, that in order to prevent the karma bubbling over, Shifu was willing, that he cared so much about saving the lives on both sides of the Taiwan Strait that he gave up some years of his life in ransom. So I will, to answer your question, I will say, 千百年来万里耕，怨声四海恨难平。欲知世上道兵劫，且闻兔门夜半声。For countless years, the bitter stew of hate goes boiling on. Its vengeful broth is ocean deep, impossible to calm. To learn the cause of all this conflict, terror, bombs, and war, listen to the cries at midnight by the butcher's door. Right? Where do wars come from? The questioner said it himself. They know. It's collective karma. And it begins on the butcher's block. It begins in the slaughterhouse, in the stockyard. And at a certain point, all that karma just bubbles over into hatred and animosity and revenge. So, what can we do? We can transfer merit to reduce that karma. We can fangsheng, liberate life when the opportunity, you have to do it safely according to laws. But better yet is don't allow a thought of anger to escape your words. Don't allow a thought of anger to escape your look. Don't give your spouse that look, the stink eye. Don't do it. Instead, be kind to those people closest to us. The person right across the breakfast table from you is a good place to keep war from breaking out. Let your kitchen be a place of peace. That's a good place to begin. Amitofo.
Amitofo, thank you, Dhamma Master. Sure. I let this go back to Professor Wu, see what he has last comment.
All right.
Well, I think that first I would like to thank Dhamma Master Sure for the wonderful wisdom talk today to begin the forums, and also your wonderful song that you sing for all of us today.
Welcome.
And I'm sure that in a few more weeks, Dhamma Master Sure will also come back as a part of the forums. So thank you very much. And thank for all the audience who participate in the forum today. And again, I think Dhamma Master Sure want to dedicate the merit of this forums with just another song.
Please. Yeah, again, express gratitude for the opportunity to spend a couple hours today with so many Dharma friends. This is my favorite thing in all the world to do, is to look into wisdom with friends who can actually make a difference in the world around us. Let's transfer the merit. By the way, please do come back every week. The other speakers on this panel are just outstanding. And on this forum, it promises to be a life-changing experience to look into these enduring questions from a Buddhist lens. So we want to transfer the merit now. And we do it, we're going to do it with a mantra. This mantra is Medicine Buddha's mantra. This is called Yao Shi Guan Ding Zhen Yan. It's number 6 of the 10 small mantras that monastics recite every single day. And this is the power of Medicine Buddha is in this chant. So we can use this to share the merit of today's lecture, of coming together in harmony with all our friends. Where you want to maybe transfer to Britain, where the pound sterling in England is under threat. And if it were to fall, we could see ourselves in another economic catastrophe. Transfer the merit to Ukraine, where just all kinds of evil is happening in the name of returning to territorial supremacy, whatever kind of lies are leading to death and destruction for so many humans in Ukraine. Send your merit to all the people in jail, all the people imprisoned who have lost their freedom because of falling afoul of the law. All the people who are climate refugees in Pakistan, now in Puerto Rico, in Cuba, people whose homes have been destroyed by nature. Wherever you would like to send your merit and virtue, please do. Send it with a thought. Expand it out to the world. We'll do it with this melody. It's on the screen. This is Sanskrit for the Chinese mantra. Okay, make that wish. Om Namo Bhagavate Vaisajya Guru Vaidurya Bhagavajaya Bhattagataya Arahate Samyak Sambuddhaya Tadyata Vaisajya 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 Samudgate Swaha Om Namo Bhagavate Vaisajya Vaidurya Prabharajaya Bhattagataya Arahate Samyak Sambuddhaya Tadyata Vaisajya 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 Samudgate Swaha. One more time. Om Namo Bhagavate Vaisajya Guru Vaidurya Prabharajaya Bhattagataya Arahate Samyak Sambuddhaya Tadyata Om Vaisajya 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 Samudgate Swaha. Om Amitofo. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Dhamma Professor.
My pleasure.
I'd like to take this opportunity to announce next week's forum that Dhamma Master Ing and Dr. Lupita Vargas, who will be talking about Prajna psychoanalysis. As Dhamma Master have talked about, that psychology and thinks about the mind, and how does Buddhism and psychology combine to make it better analytical tool for the mind. That's what the topic for next week. So all of you are welcome to join us. Professor Wu?
Ray, you want to,
That's great. Thank you very much.
Ray, you want to translate next week's speaker into Chinese? The translation room ended during the dedication of Mary.
Oh, I see. 下礼拜我们要谈的是这个佛法心理学，这个是恒英法师跟这个鲁皮特博士两个人对话。这个对话里面，我们谈到如何把佛法跟心理学合并在一起，变成一个更有力量的对心理的治疗更有力量的这个一个工具。希望大家下礼拜也来参加，谢谢。阿弥陀佛，大满满师。
阿弥陀佛。Bye, everybody.